Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Gillette Pozos, and here with me is
Omar Pozos. What is up, our VGFN fam? How's everybody doing today? Ness, how are you doing?
I'm feeling good. You know, we're recording post-Easter after like a nice weekend with the family. Before that, we were in Miami for the Hybrid Health Summit, learning all things functional health. Lots of really incredible groundbreaking things. And I've just been feeling so motivated, so excited, and just really fulfilled lately, which is, I'm excited. Long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's good. Miami was, what did the kids say? Miami was lit. Miami was so much fun.
Yeah, is that what the kids say?
I think so. I don't know what they say these days. But yeah, no, Miami was awesome. But I think part of it too is just like, there's just something about being in the sun, hanging out, relaxing, and I think it truly inspires you, and it's just, like you said, it just motivates you to be like, all right, let's get back into the swing of things, and let's see how we can keep helping people and do what we do, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like this time of year, it's like, we're coming out of the winter months where at least we don't have to deal with that much cold in Florida. But a lot of people, just like having worked with so many clients, I see this happen a lot where a lot of people, they go through a little bit of a lull period during, coming out of the holidays. We tend to kind of lose our habits sometimes. And then going into the winter months, sometimes we just feel a little bit stuck because it's so cold, because people are just feel like, a lot of times there's some seasonal depression going on and different reasons that it's really like this time of year where I feel like a lot of people actually truly have another fresh start effect, like almost what happens at the beginning of the new year. It happens again come springtime when the weather warms up and everybody's excited and happy and they're like, oh man, ready for summer, but oh crap, I want to now get back in shape, feel better in my body. Like they have that surge of motivation.
Yeah. And it sneaks up on you because like you said, now that the weather is a little bit warmer, things are a little bit nicer. You're like, all right, I want to wear some bathing suits. I want to wear some shorts. I want to wear tank tops, shirts, whatever, right? And then, you go to maybe put that bathing suit on, maybe put the shorts. I'm like, oh, this didn't fit like it used to back in the day. Or I don't feel as comfortable. I don't feel as confident wearing the things that I do. So now it's, like you said, it's time to do a little spring cleaning and just kind of get back on track with our habits.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about today. We're going to do some spring cleaning for our habits. And there really is a 4-step formula to this process. This is something that I've been teaching our clients for years and have had a ton of success with. And I'm really, really excited to finally kind of reveal this to our podcast listeners as well.
I love it. Let's do it. I know we were talking about, there's a couple habits that I want to see if you can help me break or start. And so we'll see if we can get the listeners a live habit breaking formula class today.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about why it's even important to really focus on habits, because a lot of people jump into just like, oh my gosh, I want to look good, I want to feel good, and they're so focused on the results. They're just like stepping on the scale every day, being like, is the scale going down? Am I getting leaner? Is this working? And they're not actually focused on the habits themselves. And the thing is, we overlook the small changes in our habits because they aren't as exciting. It's like if you start going to the gym like 3 days a week for a nice little workout, you're not killing yourself, you're just getting in a good pump. You're not going to suddenly, like at the end of the week, be like, oh my God, I've lost so much weight, I look so toned, I look amazing, and now everything's wonderful. No, like realistically, you're on the right trajectory, but you don't necessarily feel an incredible difference right away. We have to trust that long term, if we continue with the pattern of these types of healthy habits, like for example, going to the gym that 3 times a week, getting in some solid strength training, that over time, those habits are going to pay off. But if we get so obsessed with just, seeing immediate results, we tend to miss out on the opportunity that comes from those small changes in our habits. And people try to take on too much at once. They try and change everything about themselves, and then it's not sustainable, and then they fall off and they end up back where they started. So this is where we're really going to focus today on how we can build small but better habits, and also focus on how we can break some of the habits that aren't currently serving us.
Yeah. And I just want to add, Vanessa, to your point, when it comes to habits, and at times you might think of it like, oh, that's just who I am. That's just who I do. But the reality of it is, if you really want to change who you are, if you really want to change the outcome of the things that you're doing, then you really have to focus on the things that you're doing each and every day. And like you said, focusing on the 1%, doing one little thing each and every day that's going to help you get to your long-term goal, to your long-term journey. And I hate to say it, but it just comes down to your habits. What are you doing every single day that's getting you the things that you're getting? And if you don't like what you're getting, then let's change what we're doing so that we can get something different, if that makes any sense.
Exactly. And I love, I always love the 1% analogy.
Yeah.
Because it's something we always encourage.
I have it on my water bottle, literally.
Yeah,
like
1% better every day.
My mom gave it to me for my birthday, I think.
Oh. Yeah, you picked it out.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Well, it's the 1% better every day. A lot of times it's hard to even think about what this really looks like. But I like to use even like the example of, let's say you're on a flight and you're flying from, you're going across the country. You're flying out of LA and you're trying to get to New York City. And in that process, if your plane takes off, you as a passenger on the plane, you're not going to notice a tiny little shift in the direction of the route of the plane. But if we think about this, so if your plane takes off and the pilot shifts the direction of the plane 3.5 degrees south from the route it should be taking, and it just continues on that trajectory, that 3.5 degree shift, like you're not going to be able to notice that. That is imperceptible to you as a passenger at takeoff. Like you would not be able to notice that at all. But that 3.5 degree shift expands that over the course of the entire United States. If you're on this plane, you're going to end up landing in Washington, D.C. instead of New York City. And so, yes, when we talk about making these tiny shifts, these improving your habits by 1%, you might not feel a difference today from that 1%. But if every single day you're just making a 1% improvement, and you're allowing that to compound over time, it is incredible what can happen to your body, your health, just your life as a whole, because you are a collection of your habits. That's what you are. You are your habits.
Yeah. And I even like the point of like, if you don't feel it every single day, if you're like, oh, this isn't working. I actually really like the fact that you don't feel it, because if you can sustain these changes, then that means that, the results that you have are going to be sustainable because you can do it each and every day, as opposed to if you're working out 2 hours a day for 7 days a week and you're like, okay, I can only sustain this for 30 days or 60 days or whatever. Well, then that on that 31st day, on the 61st day, then you're going to fall off track and go back to square one because you just can't sustain it. So honestly, I would be willing to challenge anybody and be like, look, if you almost feel like you have to have a perfect day in order to hit your everyday goals or change your habits, then it's not going to work. As opposed to if you do the 1% incremental changes each and every day and you don't even tell a difference, that's the I guess the key to having long-term sustainable changes.
Yeah, I guarantee you there is nobody who is just like living that healthy, fit lifestyle that is like, oh yeah, I just got here by making like this huge overnight change and just suddenly I did that and now I've stayed with it ever since.
Yeah.
No, it was one habit at a time. They changed these tiny changes and then suddenly a decade later, they're like, wow, I am a completely different person than I was a decade ago. And I didn't even realize how much I was changing because it was just one tiny change at a time. It's like if the type of people who, maybe they were broke their entire life and then suddenly in their adult life, they win the lottery and now they're a millionaire. Guess what? Those people, they always end up going broke again because they don't have the habits in place to maintain wealth. So it's just like if suddenly today I dump on you a bunch of new healthy habits, but you don't have the systems, the structure, like truly the ground floor to build those habits up on, you're not going to sustain them. So we have to take it one step at a time.
Yeah. And I mean, not to beat a dead horse here, but I mean, like you said, Vanessa, like if nobody is out there trying to get rich by just playing the lottery, then why would you take this chance on your body and just try all these different attempts, try all these quick fixes, these fad diets with your body, considering that you only get one body and this is the one body that you get for the rest of your life? So it's like, why wouldn't you rather do a solid foundation, do something that's sustainable, gives you long-term effects and really results? And that's, the best way to do it, as opposed to trying this thing, throwing things at a wall and seeing what sticks,
Exactly. Yeah. So it does not matter how successful you are or aren't right now with your health and fitness goals. What matters is what habits you are currently building, because that I can tell where you're going to be 10 years from now by looking at your habits and nothing else. That is how important your habits are. I had put into our outline something that you've always loved as well, and this came from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, which I highly recommend.
Yeah.
And, he talks about your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. And how you feel in your body is a lagging measure of your health habits. So you are what you repeatedly do, not what you do occasionally. These are your habits, not the occasional things that you do.
Yeah.
So I think we've probably hopefully drilled in there for everybody the importance of building habits and why we focus on habits instead of results. Because good habits, it really does. It makes time your ally. If you just focus on what you do day in and day out and work on improving those things slowly over time, the time's going to pass either way, and you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be like, holy crap, I am a different person and I am a better person than I used to be.
Yeah. And to the opposite of that, I really want to challenge our listeners today. For those that are out there really, in pain, that are really struggling, that are really not loving what they see in the mirror, that are not loving their energy levels or how they feel in their clothes or their confidence levels, really take a moment and kind of just realize, that what you've been doing, again, has put you to this position, right? And from here on out, like if you really want to change, if you really want to draw a line over the sand and be the best version of yourself, be the best person that you want, really listen to these next tips that Vanessa is going to give, because this is it. This is how you build the foundation. This is how you build the new version of yourself. But it all comes from within. Like, we can't do this stuff for you, or we can't do this stuff for our listeners. We can just provide the information and meet you guys halfway, but you guys have to meet us the other half and be ready to be willing to work on this stuff. But I promise, if you guys do this, if you guys focus on these little changes, like you said, 1% better each and every day, this is how you do it. There's no magic formula. There's no magic pill. It's just about the little things that you do each and every day.
Yeah. So let's break it down. Let's talk about that 4-step formula to build good habits or break bad habits. And so, you're probably even already thinking in your head of like, what are some habits that aren't serving you right now? They're things that maybe you've picked up over time and you're like, oh God, I've got to just stop doing that. Or there's something that maybe you used to do that you're like, oh, I just really need to get back into doing that. Or there's something that you've seen somebody else do that you admire and you're like, I just really would like to get into that habit. I want you to think about those things. What are the habits you want to break? What are the habits you want to build? And now keep those in the forefront of your mind as we go through this process, as we give some examples, because then I would encourage you to go back through this 4-step formula to spring clean your own habits, clean out the bad habits and add in some good habits, because it will be so transformative. So in order to understand how to actually do this, we have to understand how a habit is created, because all the habits that you have on a daily basis, and you might even be thinking like, I don't even have any habits. Like, that's how much I'm struggling right now, Vanessa. But the reality is you do have habits, whether it's simply that like every time maybe you wake up, you check your phone and you scroll on your phone. Like, you might not consider that a habit, but that's a habit. And it's probably one you want to break. Or, maybe you always brush your teeth after you eat breakfast. You might not consider it a habit, but that is a habit, and that's a healthy one that you should maintain. So how do these habits come into place? It's really 4 steps. There's a cue, there's a craving, there's a response, and there's a reward. And this comes from Atomic Habits, James Clear's book, incredible book, highly recommend you pick it up. But these 4 steps, so you have the cue. The cue is the stimulus, the stimulus that creates these thoughts and feelings and emotions that drive that next part of it, the craving. The craving, that's linked to some sort of desire. It's maybe a desire to change your internal state. And then the response, which comes after the craving, the response is the actual habit that you perform. So really, we could call the response the habit itself. And then the reward is what comes after the response. It's the end goal of the habit. It's what the brain is associating this whole process with. When we have that cue, your brain, that's why these things, it's so important to break it down into each of these 4 steps, because the reality is there's a cue that initiates to your brain the reward. And we tend to completely jump over the fact that there's also a craving and a response, but we have to identify what each of those things are in order to understand how to break it down if we want to break the habit, or how to build it up if we want to build the habit.
All right, you're going to have to break that down for me, because for a second there, I was like, man, that sounds like a lot of work.
Well, think of it this way. Like, let's say you have a habit that is not currently serving you of every day you go over to a donut shop when you're at work. Maybe the cue is that you smell the donut. That is, this donut shop is right by your office and you smell the donut shop, even though like beforehand you were thinking like, I'm not getting a donut today, but now you smell the donut and you're like, ooh, that's the cue. Like now I'm smelling it. This smells so good. And now my brain is
starting to rumble probably.
My brain is thinking about the reward. My brain is already jumping ahead to what that donut's going to taste like, how it's going to, my blood sugar is going to go up and I'm just going to feel so good in that moment. So then that number 2, the craving is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You crave the donut. Suddenly now maybe you're like getting a little bit of a
like mouth watering.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
Your mouth is watering. Like you're just imagining how good it tastes. Suddenly you notice that your stomach is growling even though you weren't hungry a second ago. Like that's the craving. Then what is the response? You go and you buy the donut and you eat it. That's the response. That's the habit. And then the reward is that donut, you're eating it and it tastes so good. Your mouth is like, oh man, so many taste bud explosions right now. This
is it
donut's
bad that you're
incredible.
making me want to go get a donut?
Trust me, I am speaking from experience here that I would really love this donut right now. It sounds great, incredible. But now you've just created this habit loop where now it jumps from you have that cue where you smell the donut from the donut shop or you see the donut shop and your brain immediately jumps to that reward, that feeling, which now keeps you stuck in that loop where every time you get the cue, you immediately go into the craving, into the response, into the reward. So we know the 4 parts of the habit. What are they, Omar?
All right, I got you. Hold on. So the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward.
Yes.
I got it.
Nailed it. Class is in session. Well, so let's work on building and breaking some habits. So,
okay.
You said you have a habit in mind that you want to break or you want to build.
My phone, yeah, it's I'm breaking it. I that's the first thing I do as soon as I wake up is.
Oh wow, I nailed it when I was using the example.
I know you were like, wow, I was like, this is me. But literally, I mean, my phone sits right on my bedside table, and my alarm goes off at 6:30. Or sometimes 6:20, but part of my issue is I stay in bed for another 20 minutes because the first thing I do is I pick up my phone, I'm scrolling through emails, Instagram, Slack messages, and I'm like, all right, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do? As opposed to just getting out of bed, starting my morning routine, and then when I'm in a better mental state to be able to check those messages, check the things that I need to do, then I can do it. So that's what it is. It's that right as I get up, it's breaking that habit of going right to my phone.
Okay, so we can even do both sides of it then. We're going to break the habit of checking the phone as soon as you wake up, and what specifically would be a habit we want to build?
To get out of bed instead
just
of
getting out of bed immediately.
Yeah, instead of laying in bed.
So we'll do kind of them both simultaneously then. So
okay.
Step number 1, we have to look at what our cue is. So if we're talking about breaking a habit, what do we need to do? We need to make the cue invisible. We need to make it to where like we don't even have a cue anymore. The cue is gone. We need to make it disappear.
Okay.
If we want to build the habit, we need to do the opposite. We need to make the cue super obvious. We need to make it so we can't even miss the cue. So let's identify for your habit that we are breaking, which is looking at your phone. What is the cue?
The alarm goes off on my phone.
Okay. So the alarm goes off on your phone. So then how can we make that cue invisible?
Well, I've got 2 options. So I could use our sunrise alarm clocks that we have instead and totally not, use my phone, or I could use an alarm clock and avoid my phone. Is one of the things that I've been tinkering with, but I'm not sure if I want to do it. My last thing that I think I want to do is I still want to use my phone for my alarm clock because I like it, but I'm going
to... Let's stop there. Why
right.
do we need to use the phone as the alarm clock? Because
I don't need to, but I just find that it's helpful because it syncs with like my Apple Watch and it tracks like my sleep and everything. Does that make sense?
Well, your Apple Watch, I mean, if you get out of bed and you put your Apple Watch on, it's going to be able to keep up with the fact that when you're awake. So I guess
I don't need it.
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting at there. But no, this is a really great, because this is why it's helpful to have somebody else walk you through the whole breaking of a habit, because we can always focus on the end part. We focus on the result of man, I'm not going to check my phone anymore. I'm going to feel so productive. I'm going to get out of bed right away. And we get really into that idea. But then when we talk about each of these individual steps, that's where people get stuck a lot of times, is they find themselves like, ooh, but I want to have my phone with me though. It's like, ooh, but I like that. Like there's a whole nother habit loop going on there of that feeling, that dopamine hit when I get to check my phone.
And you notice how I was like, yeah, maybe I need it for my Apple Watch. Like I never really use my Apple Watch to track my sleep anyway.
There you go. When was the last time you checked your sleep on your Apple Watch?
Exactly. I don't. But and this is how easy
we justify our habits.
I know. Yeah. You start to justify, you start to make excuses. You're like, no, I need it. I don't want to get rid of it. But it's little stuff like that if you don't have another person that's picking up on that stuff, you dismiss it. And next thing you know, you're like, okay, I need the phone when you really don't need it, you know?
So I mean, something that might be a challenge for you, but probably would be really good for you is maybe you leave your phone in the kitchen and you use either the like actual alarm clock or the sunrise alarm clock to wake yourself up. And that way you can roll right into your morning routine without even checking your phone.
That's a great point. Yeah,
because that's exactly what we're saying of make the cue invisible. It's not, oh, now I'm going to just like use all of this willpower to like, I'm still going to look at my phone, is still going to be my alarm clock, but I'm just not going to look at it. Like that takes a lot of willpower. That's unrealistic. Instead, we need to just completely take the cue of looking at your phone, which is the cue of like, I check my alarm on my phone. Now, as soon as I look at my phone, that's a cue for me of like, oh, other notifications, other things to look at.
And then I get caught up in that loophole.
Exactly. If we just get rid of the cue completely, we make it disappear, we make it invisible, now you're not going to get caught up in that habit loop anymore.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's going to be hard, but I know just because of how stressed I get in the mornings because of the notifications and stuff like that, I know it's going to be really helpful for me. So, I think it's a good start for me.
Yeah. And since I feel like your habit that you're trying to build is really just in line with the habit you're trying to break, it's basically a side effect of the habit you're trying to break. For building a habit, we can use an entirely different example of one that I see a lot of times with clients when they're first learning to track food for the first time. And they might be like, oh my gosh, I've tracked food in the past and it was really hard. It was really stressful. It gave me a lot of anxiety. Like I feel like I can't do it. We have to kind of backtrack and be like, okay, let's break this down as building a habit and let's just completely rebuild this into a way that's not stressful and that really just becomes part of your day. And so it might be, okay, I'm going to just simply think of what a cue could be, and I'm going to select a time and a location for that cue, because if we're building a habit, the cue might not exist yet. With breaking a habit, it's a little bit more obvious because the cue exists. We know what the cue is. We just got to get rid of it. With building a habit, we have to completely come up with a cue a lot of times. So if our habit we're trying to build is tracking our food, maybe the cue is going to be simply a sticky note that says, track your food. And I'm going to put that in the location of my coffee maker if I go and make coffee every morning. And I'm going to, every morning, my coffee is always made at the same time. And every time I go to make it, I'm going to make sure in that moment, as my coffee is brewing, I'm going to go in and log my food for the day. Boom. That's our cue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm kind of processing it over here. That's why I was a little quiet. But it's so funny that, when you have a cue and you use it and you stack it with another, I guess, habit or another activity that you do as soon as you get up, like making coffee or brushing your teeth, like it just becomes second nature. And next thing you know, you're doing all these activities almost like without thinking about it, if that makes sense,
So a cue, it might need to be something that's really obvious. We want it to really stand out in our environment. We need to have a specific location for it, a specific time for it. Like we need to have all those steps planned out. But that's step number one. We have our cue to build our habit, or with our cue to break a habit, we've decided to make it invisible, get rid of it, really break it down. That leads us to step number two, which is, again, what's that next part of the habit loop? The craving, right?
Craving, yeah.
So if we're going to build a habit, what do? We make the craving really, really attractive. Like we make it super enticing. If we want to break a habit, what do?
We make it hard.
Yeah, we make it unattractive.
Oh, yeah.
We make it to where the craving, like let's say for the donut shop example, it'd be like if suddenly you could just magically be like, donuts taste terrible, like wave my magic wand, and now suddenly like I smell a donut and now I feel like I want to puke. Like that would be a pretty easy way to break that habit. Not realistic, but for the example here, like give you an idea of what that looks like. So let's think about your habits here. We're talking about breaking the habit of checking your phone.
Yeah.
How do we make it unattractive?
That's a great question. So I guess, man, make it unattractive, putting it away from within reach, right? To the point where I have to get out of bed if I genuinely wanted to check it. So not making it so easy and accessible to where I'm at as soon as I get up.
Yeah, so that's more so of like still step number 1 of the queue.
Okay.
Because the queue is like we've removed it. Like the queue was to check like I look at my phone and I'm like enticed to look at my notification. So now we're putting it away. If we're thinking about the craving, like, why do we crave checking our phone in the morning? Like, what makes you want to do that first thing in the morning?
It's just the hit of dopamine. Like, I'm nosy. So I'm like, I want to see what happened the night before. I want to see, what's going on Instagram, on Twitter, and all that stuff.
Yeah. So then how do we make that unattractive? Maybe, and there's a lot of different ways to go about this, but a lot of times when it comes to especially breaking habits, what can be really effective is putting yourself in the room with other people who've already broken that habit or have habits that like could replace it that you want to, like if there's habits that you want to have, putting yourself in the room with people who have those habits that you can absorb them yourself, because we are naturally the type of humans that we want to fit in to the groups we're around.
Yeah. So what do you think would make it unattractive?
So something that's coming to mind for me, and I see this happen or work really well for clients as well, is when you have somebody as an accountability buddy and you are logging this as a habit and you have to report it to somebody of like, how am I doing? So for you, it might be maybe you actually start to track this habit, and at the end of the week or, every month or something, you report to people. So maybe, for example, in
on
our
the podcast,
team, that could be one.
Next week, tune in.
But I was more so thinking of when do we talk about some of our personal habits?
In our team meetings.
Yeah. So for our listeners, with our team meetings, because we are a company that is very, very into just personal development, while we talk about what's going on in our department, how we talk about what's going on with all the different areas of our business, we also, each individually, every person within our company talks about what's going on with themselves.
Yeah, personal
and we all
metrics.
work on different habits we just call personal metrics, and we do report how we're doing on those things weekly, and we can update them, change them whenever we want. So maybe this is something you want to add to your KPIs there.
Yeah, no, I like it. And here's the other thing too, even when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to everything, if you put it out there and you hold yourself accountable and you let other people, know what it is that you're trying to achieve, it's going to be a little bit harder, because it's almost a little embarrassing if you don't do the things that you're doing, because people are going to be like, oh, I thought you were doing this, or I thought you were doing that. And it's not a, self-criticizing thing, or it's not I'm a terrible person, but it's more of just that external accountability. And that external accountability is huge, and it makes tremendous impact. So yes, I will add it to our team meetings so that I can report on it every week.
Because when it comes to, the craving, it's really the anticipation of the reward, not the reward itself, that makes us actually react. So like, for example, it's not necessarily the fact that we it's what we think the donut is going to taste to us, what we think it's going to make us feel, not really how it actually feels. Let's be honest, a lot of times after we eat donuts, for example, we might feel crappy afterwards. And we can actually recognize that. But yet when we have that craving, we still find ourselves pouncing on the craving. That's because we anticipate that it's going to taste so good, and we forget how we actually feel afterwards.
Yeah. And you just have to be honest with yourself. Like for me, the phone is something that's not serving me, that it's not putting me in a good mental state when I get up in the morning. So I'm like, do I want to continue down this path? The answer is no. So for me, I'm going to look for things like this so that I can change my daily habits, and of course change how I feel throughout the day. And it's the same with how you feel in your clothes. If you really, like I said, if you're honest with yourself and you truly hate where you are, or if you don't like what you're seeing, then we need to really work on these little things so that you can hold yourself accountable and actually make some progress, as opposed to saying screw it, F it, and throwing in the towel when things get tough.
Yeah, exactly. So there's several different ways we could go as far as the craving. And so I think a big one for you is having to report it to other people, because then that's going to be that moment for you in the morning where you're like, ooh, I have that craving to check my notifications. But then you're also immediately have to think, well, if I do that, then I have to explain to my whole team that I was giving into that craving, and that itself feels unattractive. So that 100%. Can break that craving.
I like it.
Now, if we want to build a habit, a lot of times we might add additional rewards. So again, if we're going back to wanting to build the habit of tracking our food, we could add rewards to that. It might be something as simple as I am working with a coach, and when I log my food and I get that done, then I can share that with my coach that I did that, and she's going to hype me up and she's going to make me feel incredible about it. Or maybe I'm part of Team VGFN and I am going to share on Win Wednesday that I've been keeping the streak alive. I've been tracking my food every morning when my coffee is brewing, and now I'm excited about that and I can share it and everybody's going to cheer me on, and that's going to help me keep that going because that's attractive. We do crave praise from other people. So it can be that simple. But it might also be that you just build in, like, when I do this for, 21 days straight, then I'm going to give myself a reward of, I'm going to buy something that I've wanted. Like, it can be that simple too.
Could you also make it as simple as, like, I will drink my cup of coffee once I've entered my food into my Fitness Pal, or I will do this, or I'll reward myself with this once I do this, or something as simple as that?
Yeah, you could have like an immediate reward as well. Like, so it can be, I can't drink my coffee until I've tracked my food.
Yeah.
That's actually a really great example. Good job. Look at that. You're
I love
learning.
praise. Keep praising me.
Yes. Oh, you are so handsome.
Thanks,
and
babe.
So smart.
All right. What's number 4?
Well, we're actually step number 3. So step number three is the response. So if we want to build a habit, what do? We make the response super easy. If we want to break the habit, what do? We make the response
unattractive. Right? Hard, not easy. I don't know. What was it?
No. The craving was attractive versus unattractive. Okay. Remember, we wanted to make the craving.
Oh, you make it difficult. You make the response difficult.
What is the opposite? We want to build a habit. We make it easy. We want to break a habit. We make it hard.
Yes, you make it
okay, if you're at least 50% paying attention, I'll give it to you.
I am paying attention, I think. Or I am.
Well, step number 3. All right, we're going to focus back on you. We're going to break your habit.
Okay.
So if we want to make this response of checking the phone difficult, because we do always gravitate towards the option that requires the least amount of work. We are, as human beings, it is a natural survival instinct that we're lazy and that we will like to always go to do the thing that's easy, that is as easy as possible.
Yeah.
So if we can remove potential barriers, that's going to help strengthen the habit. If we can add barriers, that's going to make the habit harder. So what can we do to make the response more difficult for you?
Well, I think, like you said, putting the phone away from within reach. So in order for me to actually check it, I have to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Or I have to, shower first, or whatever that looks like. But yeah, just not making it as convenient as like, oh, I'm just going to, pick it up because I got to turn my alarm off. And then as I'm already, have the phone in my hand, I start going through notifications.
Yeah. So I think that one, honestly, you can almost have the same thing for your step number 1 as your step number 3, because it's going to do both. By removing the cue for you of the phone, you're also making it harder to check the phone, because the cue really is also the act of it. Yeah. So for that one, it's pretty easy. But let's talk about how it looks like then for building a habit. So for our example of we're working on building the habit of tracking our food, I might make sure that, I want to make this habit super, super easy. I want to make the response as simple as possible to where it's like there are 0 barriers to entry. There's no reason why I can't do this. What do? Maybe if I'm logging my food on my phone, then I always make sure that when I go to make my coffee, I have my phone with me. And then I also make sure that I know what I'm already going to eat for the day. And I have my Fitness Pal like right there on like the front page of my apps, and all my other apps that are like really alluring to me are hidden. Maybe my social media apps that I tend to like mindlessly click to are on like the second page, and I go straight to my Fitness Pal, and I already have my go-to meal saved. So it's so easy. It only takes me 30 seconds to log my whole food for the day. Boom.
Nice and easy. Yeah.
We just made the response that we want to have really easy. Right. So step number 4 is
the reward part.
Yes. All right. So if we want to finally, we're talking about our habits. We're on finally the 4-step process. We're on step number 4. What is it to build a habit? We have to make our reward super satisfying. If we want to build a habit, what do?
Make it unsatisfying.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a word, babe, but I'll let you
It is a word. Unsatisfying is a word.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you want to challenge me on that,
No, I believe you.
Yeah. So this is a lot of times where that external accountability really comes in as well, especially when we're talking about breaking a habit. Like, how do we take what is typically the reward from that habit? So for you, maybe checking your phone, the reward is getting that dopamine hit of like checking my notifications and like, oh my gosh, this is like feels so good in the moment. That's the reward that your brain is seeking.
Yeah.
Is checking notifications. So if we want to get rid of that reward and we want to make that unsatisfying, what could we do?
Well, considering that we had talked about like the external accountability, I think every time I do actually look at it, or I do look at the notifications outside of when I'm supposed to, I can, let the team know, or I can let the podcast listeners know.
Yeah, you have to announce it. So if you don't follow through on your or if you follow through on the habit you're trying to break.
Put it on my story on Instagram.
Man.
And be like, I just checked my phone when I wasn't supposed to. But if you think about it, though, as silly as that sounds, like you voicing it out, it does make it more uncomfortable and makes it hard, so that, if you know that if you do check your phone, you're going to put yourself out there and be like, I know I wasn't supposed to, and here's me, owning up
it's
to
an immediate just relieving of that dopamine hit, because instead of getting like that dopamine hit of like, oh, I'm checking notifications, this feels so good. Instead, you're like, oh crap, I'm checking notifications. Now I have to tell everybody that I just did that.
Yeah.
And then I screwed up, and that feels really crappy. That's going to break that habit really fast.
I know. All right. So I'm going to do it. Next time I look at it outside of the hours that I'm supposed to, I'm going to send a message to the team in our Slack channel and just let them know that I'm checking notifications outside of.
We're announcing this on our next team meeting too. That going forward, if you do that, you have to announce it in our random Slack channel.
Let's do it. But here's the thing, and again, you have to be honest with yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't just go around and be like, oh, I didn't do it, and then hide it, because you're only doing yourself a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are honest, if you own up to it, then you can get the help and get other people's opinions on how you can break that habit and be able to actually move on with your life and actually do the things that you want.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think our listeners could see from us doing this in real time, like, this stuff isn't easy. This is why it's so great to have a coach work through these things. I mean, I'm helping you through this, but like, it's because I'm always having people help me through it too. Yeah. Like, we all are always helping each other. It's really hard to get out of your own head when it comes to habits. There's a reason that our habits are ingrained, and you kind of need somebody to question you, to ask things, to help you think differently about the situation so we can work through it. Because, again, it's not simple, it's not automatic. But let's wrap this up. Step number 4, what would be our reward? How do we make it super, super satisfying for wanting to get into the habit of logging our food? Well, it could be that, I use a habit tracker to check off my streaks of when I am, logging my food every day while my coffee is brewing. And I share that with somebody, and, we celebrate it, and that feels really, really good. And so I get this like dopamine hit whenever I do it. Yeah. So it can be that simple. But, if you're having trouble with building habits, breaking habits, like, I want you to understand that it's not you. You are not the problem. It's our environment. It is how we are raised. It is just like everything outside externally makes this stuff hard, but you are capable of changing. You can absolutely change any habit. And I say that with 100% confidence, because I have seen people who you never would have expected them to be able to turn things around for themselves, and they have completely overhauled their habits because they start with this process and they build one habit at a time. They break one habit at a time, and just step by step, we lay a brick and we just keep building up that wall until you get where you want to be. And that's how this stuff works.
Yeah. And listen, if I can do it, you guys can do it. So we're all in this together. And even if sometimes, you need external accountability, like reach out to Vanessa, reach out to me, and just as accountability buddies, or just, hey, I'm just throwing this out there into the universe. Like, this is what I want to do. And we're more than happy to not just hold you accountable, but give you proper tips, proper advice to be able to actually do this stuff all on your own.
Yeah. You know what? Even bonus here, because our listeners who listen to this through the end, listen to us actually work through this process, I'm going to give you something. So, back before we developed the VGFN app where our clients track their habits now, back in the past, I used a habit tracker spreadsheet for our clients to help them track habits. So, I will share that with anybody who wants it, so that you can use our system to really keep track of your habits. And then you can continue to share that tracker with me and keep me updated for that form of external accountability. And I am happy to do so. So just shoot me a DM, say, habit tracker, or I would love the habit tracker, or Vanessa, you're amazing and wonderful, and I just really love you, and habit tracker. That works too, if you want to throw that in. But that is all. Think about what habit you want to build, and we'll go from there.
All right, let's break some habits, our VGFN fam. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back again next week.
Thank you so much.